year-old woman in the parking lot. This robbery occurred 6 days before the burglary. There is surveillance video from the parking lot that we're going to show you now. So you can see our victim. She's approaching her vehicle. Our two suspects are over there by the cart corral. They're casing her out. Then they approach her, talk to her, there's an interaction, and then they stand there and continue to watch her. She puts the cart in the corral and then returns to her vehicle. As she's returning to her vehicle, one of the suspects approaches her again. There's a brief conversation, and then he steals the keys to her car. There's a brief struggle. And both of our suspects run from the scene. There's additional surveillance video that we were able to use, or our detectives were able to use to further identify these individuals. Thankfully, our 77-year-old victim in this case was not harmed. Jacory and Richard have both been charged with robbery, sudden snatching. There's an old song that talks about being young, reckless, and bored. I think many of us can relate to that. But in this case, these juveniles are young, destructive, and dangerous. We continue to seek the community's help. We still have 4 missing firearms. There are 3 pistols and 1 rifle out there. Every illegal gun that is out there on the street is just on its way to being part of another criminal act. If anyone has additional information, we urge them to call our non-emergency number, 904-630-0500, or email jsocrimetips@jacksheriff.org. You can also call our First Coast Crime Stoppers partners at 1-866-845-TIPS. I also want to point out there's a reason we release the names and photos of these juvenile suspects. Florida law allows us to release this information when these individuals are arrested for felony charges. So in the last handful of days, that's why we've released this information, is because of the charges that these individuals are facing. I'd also like to reiterate, in the last few days, we've had several cases where our suspects are young people, teenagers. I have to reiterate to everyone listening, the police cannot be the only means of intervention in these children's lives. They have to be taught values, morals, and empathy for their fellow man. This is the only way to protect the next generation, to preserve the community that we live in. So with that, I'll take any questions. Yes, sir.
I was wondering how a 14-year-old, it seems to me like a gun store would have a more, was it just a single door between the outside and these guns? How did a gun store, it seems like a 14-year-old would not be able to break into a gun store so easily.
They worked on that door for quite a while. There's quite a few pry marks on the door. They worked on it. They worked on it hard. And, it didn't just pop open the first time they put the crowbar in there. Obviously, they've got a crowbar, so they're using a little bit of leverage, and that, increases that. But they were there a while. They were determined they were going to get in that business.
And then, of the 4 guns that are missing, what kind of guns are they?
So 3 of them are semi-automatic handguns. They're Glocks. And then we have 1 rifle, and I can get the particulars for that.
Is it believed drove to the scene and then drove back? Was there someone who was of legal driving age in the car with them?
So they walked the entire distance. They actually walked to the store earlier that day. So round trip, and they walked over 5 miles to see the store the first time and to return to the store that evening to break into the store.
From your perspective, is there an uptick in crime involving children or teenagers, especially when it comes to gun violence?
That's a great question. We are seeing that obviously in the last handful of cases that we've talked about. We have young adults, juveniles, kids, whatever you want to call them. But really, it's not that there's an uptick as much as, like I talked about, showcasing some of the great work, the great investigative work that's occurring. And that's really what it's been. We don't have control over the calls that we are dealt and the things that we have to deal with or see as police officers. But really, it's more about what we've, been showcasing and spotlighting, because that's the big cases. I mean, obviously, the triple murder yesterday and today's, this is a big case. So it's not that there's an uptick as much as just we're talking about it. We want the community to know. You need to know where your children are and keep track of them and teach them, things that I consider fundamentals and basics.
What's your message to these children, to these teenagers?
Well, in this case, I'm not speaking to these individuals, but there's a lot of things out there there's a lot of positive influences, there's a lot of constructive things out there that children can get involved in. We have the Police Athletic League, and there's other local sports events. There are mentors out there if you're looking for a positive influence in your life. And we often see these things are short-lived. If you're going to get involved in a criminal element, it's going to be short-lived. We talk about it all the time. Our murder numbers, the vast majority of the people that are involved in murder or the victim of murder are involved in illegal activity, whether it's because of guns, drugs, or other illicit. So, find a positive influence. There are people out there that want to see you succeed. So,
Thank you, Director.
thank you.
The arrest and booking reports and photos and video have been uploaded under trending topics. So if you click that one, you guys up with the media advisory. There might be a couple folders, so you might click the first one, it might not all be in there. They're separated by case and photo versus booking report and things like that. Of course, I think electronics a little easier.